Hollow Knight is one of my favorite games ever, and a big part of that is honestly just how it feels to move around in the game. The physics of the game are ridiculously satisfying. The controls feel tight, the player movement is snappy, every drop feels like it has weight behind it. Recently, I made my first game in Godot. It worked, but there was no real physics behind it. Functional, and that's about it. So, I wanted to try exploring Godot's 2D physics engine properly this time, and really have the different objects of the game interact with each other. I started by making the basic ground and the player character. The ground was just a static body 2D which was colored white. And as for the player, I used the standard character body 2D and used the default script for the movement. One thing you might have noticed here is that for the speed, instead of using hard code, I used curves instead. This is because I'd seen this video showing it off and I thought it was pretty cool. So I wanted to incorporate it in some way. Currently, it's pretty hard to distinguish the player from the rest of the game. So let's add some visuals. Not the prettiest, but it'll do the job. The next thing I wanted to implement was adding a sprint mechanic to the game. For what I had planned next, I wanted the player to move at different speeds. To add the sprint mechanic, I just made it so that whenever you press shift, it would multiply the speed by 1.5 times, and it was pretty easy to implement. The next real element I added to the game was the ball. For this, I made use of the rigid body 2D node and added a sprite to it. I wanted to make it a little distinguishable, so I made a custom sprite for it. It was just a quick process using the app called LibreSprite, which is a free alternative to the more popular app Sprite. I quickly got done with the visuals of the ball and started to work on the actual functionality. The first way I tried to make the player and the ball interact was by having a area 2D node which would kick the ball whenever it gets in contact with it. Basically, what this code does is whenever the ball comes in contact with the player, it will apply an impulse on the ball which would make it fly off. I got confused at this part because of a silly mistake, and that was I was pushing it into the ground instead of the air. But after that, I had it working, sort of. As you can see here, the ball wasn't getting kicked as hard as I would like it to. And to make things even more difficult, I wanted the speed of the ball to be related to how fast the player is moving. Remember how I added the sprint mechanic? This was exactly why. For some reason, the ball would get kicked really slowly and occasionally just fly off for no reason. I tried messing around with it for around 20 to 30 minutes, but it just kept getting messier and messier. So at the end, I decided to ditch the Area 2D implementation and go for another solution which would use a function which is already in the character body 2D node. This implementation worked much better and I got it working in about 10 minutes. The next thing I added was some bounce to the ball, because as of now it just flies off, hits the wall and just stops. This was pretty easy as there was already an option for it in the inspector. The next and final part of the game I added were some crates, and to my surprise these were pretty easy to make. I just added another rigid body 2D node, added a sprite to it, and I was basically done. All the gravity and physics I wanted to add was already there by default, so I was done with making the mechanics of the game. At this point, I was done with adding features to it, so now it was time to see how badly I can break the physics which I made myself. I started off small with just a few crates. The idea was I'll kick the ball towards the crate and make them go flying. To add to the dramaticness, I reduced the weight of the crates, and it worked. But what's better than one stack of boxes? Obviously, it's two stack of boxes, or so I thought, but they kinda just acted as support for each other. So I replaced it with just a straight tower of crates. I tested with just one and it went exactly how I wanted it to. So I did what any sane man would do and copied it 3 more times and reduced the weight of the crates a little more, and boxes falling from the sky, player missing. I think I can call it broken now. So this was my first time playing around with Godot's 2D physics engine. If you'd like to see me try out other aspects of Godot, then make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.